Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. We're at 7920 Southeast Orient Road here, doing a rescope. Zero out, we've got water running. I'm just gonna zip the thing all the way out and then we'll pull back once the line's drained off and take a look at everything. All right, so what I kind of talked about the last go around, there was a very, very minor amount of standing water in a couple spots in the first length of pipe. It was corrected. My bigger concern was from 60 feet and on. You had a pretty significant belly at 60 feet, and then a even more significant one towards the end of the tank. So anyway, when you're dealing with tolerances this tight, I don't ever expect these to necessarily look absolutely perfect. Because often what is necessary to make them look perfect is huge undertaking. I mean, sometimes even you're talking raising plumbing up inside the house and or sinking a tank even deeper into the ground to provide more slope and grade on the line. So anyway, we'll see how this thing looks here when it's all shooken out, once it drains. I can tell we've got standing water in a couple spots here. All right, there we go. I finally have hit the tank this time around. Last time I couldn't even get to this point. There's the tank connection. So we're gonna let the line drain out. I'm gonna do a couple toilet flushes. Just there's a little bit of debris in the line. Try and get that cleared out. We'll pull back here and take a look at everything. Okay. Looks like the line is essentially done. And we're going to give it just a second longer here. There's still a little bit moving through the line. Alright, so we're going to start reeling back in here now. I think this has done most of the draining it's going to at this point. So obviously, much different looking scenario than the first go around. There is still a little bit of standing water here at the end of the line, but very minor. You know, for instance, if I were out here scoping right now for a buyer, this was the line as it sits, that kind of standing water, I would never in a million years recommend a repair on. That there was about a 1/16 of an inch of standing water. That's the clean out access that's out there. Wait for just a moment longer. There's still a little bit of water moving through the pipe. That may be from a toilet flapper that's not shutting all the way. That looks like, I think there's some human waste in the line right there, and it may have been situated sideways, which can cause a miniature dam in the pipe. You can see the water is moving past us right now, so that thing's at the very end of the line. That's going to move on its way there. It just looks like human waste. So we're going to go kind of slow here because there is a little bit of water still trickling to the line. I'm not entirely sure where it's coming from. It's probably a plumbing fixture that's most likely a toilet flapper that's not closing off all the way or takes a while to close off. Again, very, very minor standing water here. I can tell a little bit of that's standing, but you can see that there's still particulate shooting past the camera right now. These long lines like this that are just right at a 1/4 inch per foot, they drain off slowly. It takes some time. So there may actually be little to no standing water here in reality, but it looks like you've got a little bit there. If the line were to be fully drained off, I mean, we're talking 32nd to a 1/16 of an inch of water. And it wouldn't surprise me if we're going to see that in a few spots here. Realistically, this is one of those lines where under ideal circumstances, that tank is about another 2 feet deeper to provide just plenty of room to grade the sewer line. In my opinion, it does not make sense to go that kind of undertaking to get, you know, a 32nd of an inch of standing water out of the line in a few places, or 1/16 of an inch. Thus far, none of the water has surpassed that point. Very, very minor stuff. And like I was saying before, this is not one of those scenarios where if this were any other line I was scoping for a buyer, I would not be recommending repairs on stuff like this. Again, if you look at the water there, still moving past us. Now, the one thing that consistently hangs up, no matter how minor it is, or its standing water is, in that kind of water there, is if you are putting grease and cooking oil down the pipe. And that will build up in any part of your line, whether there's standing water or not. But it tends to concentrate more in standing water. That right there is probably the most significant standing water in the entire line. And that is about a 1/16 of an inch. It's not even touching the bottom of my camera lens. The rest of what you've got there is in like the 32nd of an inch category. So, and being this is a septic system, it should be being treated as such. Grease, fats, oil should not go down your line to begin with. What do we have here? You know what? That's probably, I know what that is there. That's some, that'll move on its way. At the top of the line, I'll show you where that's at. Right as I went into the pipe here, there is a spot where there was a little bit of grease at the top of the pipe. It didn't get clean. I think my camera knocked it loose. Anyway, I'm gonna write this up. Yeah, it's right here in this spot. My camera scraped some of that junk loose as it was going in there. Anyway, considering what you've got to work with here and what we had to begin with, I am pleased with the outcome. Honestly, I think to make this thing graded absolutely perfect would require a very large undertaking. In my opinion, that's overkill for what you're dealing with. But like I was saying before, in an ideal world, the tank's another 2-3 feet deeper, and or, you know, you have the basement line on an ejector and it pumps up to a line that's exiting out, you know, 2-3 feet above the floor to earn back that grade, either of which would provide you lots and lots of depth to work with. But it is what it is. It's what you've got to work with here. And in my opinion, considering the length of the line and the amount of depth you have to play with, I'm actually quite pleased how that turned out there. So you've got sporadic standing water throughout the line. All of it, none of it exceeds even 1/4 of an inch. I don't think anywhere in that pipe there, the water line even hit the base of my camera lens, which sits about 1/4 inch off the bottom of the pipe. Everything we just saw there is in the 1/16 1/4 inch realm. As it said, there's a couple random spots of debris in the line, but all that stuff will flush out. It was all the stuff that was in there to begin with. It just broke loose and the camera went through. So just make sure you're keeping your habits in place there as it relates to cooking oil and grease. Septics should be treated nicer than the average sewer line anyway, and if you are not feeding the line a healthy diet of stuff that will build up, it just simply will not, you're not giving it anything to build up. So keep the grease, cooking oil, fats in general out of the line. And if I didn't, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but the general rule of thumb as it relates to fats and oils, at least in my opinion, if you've got enough on your pan that when you turn the pan sideways, the grease and oil runs off the pan, it's at that point you want to do something about it. Pour it into a jar or a metal or glass jar of some kind when it's still liquid, or let it cool down, wipe it out with a paper towel, and or scrape it off into a garbage can after it's cooled. Thin little coating of PAM spray, that kind of stuff, generally speaking, not a huge deal. Although you want to avoid as much possible going down the septic system because it doesn't have a main lateral to attach to, where it goes off to oblivion to the city to deal with. Any fat that does go down the line will remain in the system somewhere. So you want to try and keep it to little to nothing if possible. But anyway, it's when you're putting real quantity down the line is where it gets you. But in a case like this, you want to try to avoid all of it if possible. Because any fats that do get down the line, although those habit, the thing, pointers I just gave you there help keep the line itself clean of buildup. Eventually it ends up in the tank and it floats off into the drain fields. That's why you want to keep it to just about nothing if you can help it. Anyway, as we sit here today, we have adequate flow all the way to the septic system. All the standing water, in my opinion, is too minor at this point to go through the undertaking to fully correct it. To me, that is complete overkill for what you've got here. It is not a perfect sewer line, but it is a line that functions, and it has adequate flow to the main lateral. Everything we just scoped there is intact. Line is functioning at this time.